Hey guys, welcome back to Teen Muscle Radio and episode number 14. So today I'm lucky enough to be joined by my friend Denis Mihov. And basically last weekend, hence why there was no episode, I was at the BMBF British Finals. And I saw this teen on stage. And lucky enough, I managed to get in touch with him really, really fast. And obviously here at Teen Muscle Radio, we've got a lot of listeners that are teens. And I'm sure there's a lot of teens that are really, really pumped to sort of listen to your story, Denis. Before I go on any more about you, basically give the listener an idea about what you're about. And welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, AJ. First of all, I'm Denis Mihov, as he said. I competed recently in the BMBF finals, which was last weekend. And I won first place in my class, which is teens. I'm at 17 at the moment, weighing at around 175 pounds. Surprisingly enough, since the teens in the BMBF finals, I haven't put on any weight.
Wow, well done.
I pretty much stayed on the approximately same weight, just a little bit of fat, going up. Mm-hmm. But that's pretty much it. I'm from Bulgaria. I'm not full British yet, but next year, hopefully I'll get my UK passport.
Okay. So did you travel over just for the BNBF finals? Are you still in the UK at the moment?
I live in the UK. Okay. I've been living in the UK since the past 4 years.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. So what do you give the listener an idea about sort of what your day-to-day life is at the moment in the UK? Are you here studying or are you here with a job? What's going on at the moment in terms of your everyday life?
At the moment, my everyday life is just college and bodybuilding at the moment.
Wow, cool.
I'm studying 3D games and design at the City of Oxford College.
Awesome.
And with that, I'm trying to compete in bodybuilding. And I'm trying to sort of fit in 2 workouts a day.
Wow.
It's difficult to get it, but if I get like a time gap in between, like even an hour, I'll try my best to put in a workout.
Wow, interesting. Wow, I didn't know you were 17. Like that shocked the hell out of me. That's
you're not the only
incredible.
One. A lot of people.
You've beaten like 19, 18-year-olds that were in their last year of the teens. Wow, that's wicked. That's really blown me away. Okay, cool. So, give us an idea. Like, take us back to right at the start, Denis. So, how did it all begin for you? When did you start lifting? Obviously, you're still a very young individual, but when did you get into the gym and give us an idea as to how it started?
My first ever steps in the gym, believe it or not, was when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
The first ever steps I made in the gym was when I was 5 years old, and that was because I was with my dad, and that's pretty much where it all began. That day, my dad had to go to the gym and get a workout in, but at the same time, he couldn't leave me alone at the house. So he decided to take me with him, and when we went into the gym, he gave me those little tiny like 0.5 kilogram weights or even a kilogram, and he gave it to me. He was like, just do like this, like a bicep curl, like that. Just do that. Go to the corner and just do that for until I finish, until I tell you to stop. And I was a little kid. I was like, okay, daddy. went to the corner, just kept on doing that for like an hour and a half or 2 until he finishes. And from there, honestly, he kept on taking me to the gym. He kept on telling me to do that. I kept on doing it. Mm-hmm. And as time went by, I just found myself in the gym.
Wow.
Every single day.
Every single day. So, when did you properly start getting into it, getting into the flow of things? Obviously, your first entrance was at 5 years old, which is the youngest I've ever heard in my life. But when do you think that you really started getting into sort of structured workouts and really getting your head down with the sort of the training?
I would say at around 11. Mm-hmm. 11, 12.
Okay, that's still really young. Wow.
Well, in Bulgaria, they don't really have age limit like in the UK. Okay. In the UK, you have to be 16 in order to start lifting free weights. But in Bulgaria, they don't have that limit. They just allow you to do it. But as long as you have someone, having an eye on you and making sure you're doing it properly so you don't hurt yourself. So when I decided to actually start doing it more often and be serious about it, focus on I went in and I took one of the fitness instructors with me, and I told him that I want to start doing bodybuilding seriously.
Yeah.
You know, back then, because I was just 11 or 12, the guy was just like, "Are you fucking serious? Are you out of your mind? You're still like fucking this young age, and you want to do it seriously?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to." So he told me a few stuff here and there, like the big exercises, you know, bench press, squats, deadlift.
Yep.
He told me to try and get him in at least once a week, each exercise. He told me to do bicep curls, this and that, and you know, the basic stuff that a guy would tell you.
Sure.
And I started following that. But then nutrition-wise, I started seriously at like 14, 15.
Okay.
So I was mainly on weights for most of my years.
You know, see, that's mega interesting. That's part and parcel of why you're so successful at such a young age, is that you've had like a properly decent 5 to 6 years of relatively okay weight training, which for some is like they might start at like 16, therefore they're a good 3 years behind you. So the fact that obviously the Bulgaria hasn't got age limits in terms of their entrance to the gym is actually potentially a beneficial thing in terms of reaching your peak when you're young, and then building from that. And I think that that's probably why you stood out on stage at the weekend, is that you have had a lot of training years behind you, and probably somewhat you've caught up to the likes of the the 19-year-olds, which are essentially older than you, but you've had a good period in the gym. So when you were 12, obviously that's really, really young to sort of get into the gym and get really into bodybuilding and asking fitness instructors for help, etc. So did you have any other hobbies at all, or was it really bodybuilding from the beginning?
It was not bodybuilding from the beginning.
Okay.
In a way, I had like basketball behind doing that. I was training for the local city team.
Yep.
And in a way, I was trying to get like a little bit more explosive strength into my legs mainly, to try and be able to jump, because white people can't jump. And I was doing a lot of squats. Like, I've noticed myself that since a young age I was doing a lot of squats and a lot of deadlifts. Obviously at like 12 years old I was doing like the minor 40 kilograms on squat or deadlift, but I was trying to focus more on my legs instead of upper body wise. Upper body wise, I was like, I just need to pass the ball. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. Like, basketball was the main thing. Volleyball as well, but then again, that's legs mainly. But that was about it. Other than that, I didn't really focus on anything else.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, a lot of people will transition usually from one sport to another. So they'll have like a sport that requires some gym element to progress. So like with you, it was basketball. You needed legs, like power in your legs to jump. Whereas some people might have, in the UK, rugby is very popular as a transition. So they'll play rugby. They'll want to be bigger to scrum and to tackle people. And they'll go to the gym. They'll put on some size. And then they'll be like, oh, well, I actually like training more than doing rugby, so I'm going to be a bodybuilder. So there is that transition there quite often, and it's good to see that obviously you've had that as well. In terms of your progress, when you were 12 years old and still developing, obviously it's difficult to notice progress, but for a 17-year-old you have a lot of muscle, enough muscle to win a British Championship, which is something quite incredible. So when did you notice that you were really making some gains, so to speak, and you were sort of getting bigger than your friends who were maybe like 13 and 14 years old?
So you've gained some gains, but...
Yeah, exactly that.
Well, if I have to be honest, like at the age, I would say 15 is when I actually noticed like I was getting bigger. I was getting absolutely, from a steady pace to like whoop like that.
Right.
But then again, I think it's because mainly I switched gyms.
Okay.
Because I've been living in Abingdon since I was like 14-ish.
Sure.
And I went to, what was it? The White Horse Leisure Gym.
Okay.
And obviously, because it's a leisure gym, it had more like machines than weights.
Mm.
So I had to kind of work around that. And
Yeah.
I did. I was using more of the machines than the weights. But then I switched to Results, which was a really heavily weight type gym. Like, one of those old school gyms.
Sure.
And from there, I had kilograms of steel available for me to lift. And from there, I just noticed myself, like on my squats, for example, because obviously in the leisure they had limited amount of weights. I could
Yeah.
only like squat about 80.
Okay.
As soon as I went to Results, they had a lot more steel available for me, so I went from 80 to 100 to 120, 140. I was being able to stack up weights just like nothing, and my body just exploded into gaining size.
Wow. So you think it was primarily because you changed gyms, you were able to use a lot more maybe equipment, more weight on the bar,
Yeah.
and then you started to progress. Did you get strong like really, really quick? Have you always been someone that gains strength quite quickly and adds mass fairly easily, or were you sort of a hard gainer?
In terms of strength-wise, I've always been strong. Like since I noticed that like when I was 12 or 13, I could easily pick up like say a 30-kilogram dumbbell
Hmm.
and do like a chest press or for one rep, well not for like 12.
Yeah.
But I've always been type of a strong guy, but I was never the big like a big guy.
Hmm.
I tend to be like, the normal guys, not too big, not too small.
Okay.
But I always had strength behind me.
Yeah,
So
sure.
as soon as I started putting up the weight up, my strength just went beyond, and I set my personal record at squats at 260 kilograms on 16 years old, and I haven't touched that
Jesus
yet.
Christ.
So
Wow. Was
you
that with knee wraps or a belt or?
oh, it was absolutely raw. No belt, no knee wraps. I know it's hard to
Fucking
believe,
hell.
but honestly,
What do you squat now, Dennis? Like during prep? Do you
at
squat
the moment
lighter or?
during prep, I have to squat lighter because of the fact that I've been training them like a power lifter, like
Yeah.
200 kilograms unusual. My legs just can stack up water and glucose like crazy.
Okay, so they get
On
really watery as a result of training them
like
up too heavy.
yeah, they will pack up size. Like
Mm.
my legs can pack up size instantly, like a click of a finger. They'll be big.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But when it comes to shredding them down,
Mm.
that's where they're quite a tough bitch.
Yeah. Do you find it, like, going off on a tangent, but have you found throughout this prep that maybe your upper body gets lean quicker than your lower body then, and like it's a struggle to get your legs lean?
Yeah, my upper body can shred down quite quick.
Yeah.
It's kind of like with my legs, size is really easy, but shredness is hard.
Yeah.
For my upper body, shredness it's easy, but gaining it's a tiny bit harder than usual.
I'm exactly the same boat as you. Exactly the same boat. And it's
I li-
annoying.
Like, so when I saw the pictures, I was like, I'm shredded as to bone dry up top, but my
Yeah.
legs, they could do it more.
Yeah, I mean, I thought on like last weekend, I thought your legs looked really good. Probably the best in terms of, overall development in the lineup. Hence why you won. But in terms of like condition, there was one guy that was maybe slightly crisper in the legs, but he'd lost out a little bit on mass to you. But
Jack
that's
Hill?
yeah, that's the fun. Yeah, just a little bit like his adductors were in, which are very hard to get. I didn't get anywhere near sort of that level, which is very difficult to get.
My legs are just a bitch.
Yeah.
They want to keep the size. They don't want to get rid of
They
it.
don't want to shred. Yeah, I know what you mean. So in terms of my final question as to sort of how you got into things, etc., before we move on to your prep, what did your sort of like family, friends react to this sort of love for training and bodybuilding? You say you train 2 times a day, so it's a we talk about this a lot, and it is almost a bit of a selfish sport, because you're spending a lot of time thinking about yourself, doing your own meals, doing your own training. So did you ever have any sort of conflict with friends or family about your training or your decision to follow bodybuilding?
When I think about it, not not that much when it comes to friends. My friends have always been like, go ahead, do it, do it, do it. They've always pushed me. Like, even if they're not in bodybuilding, they'll always tell me, go to the gym, come on, do it, push yourself.
Sure.
It's something to enjoy. In terms of family, though, it was 50-50. My dad was always supportive, as usual. Like I told you, he got me to the gym at fucking 5 years old. Like,
Yeah.
he was always supportive, but my mom was really, really unhappy about it.
Oh no.
She was always like, just a hobby. You cannot do anything with it.
Mhm.
It's complete waste of time for you going up there. She always wanted me to like focus more on studying than actual doing sports or anything. She just never until this weekend actually that she started supporting me on it.
Wow. Did she watch at the weekend at all, or?
Yeah, she came up with me to Scotland.
Wow.
And she watched me obviously compete.
Mhm.
But until then, she was never actually supportive. She never thought I could do something with it. And until after that weekend, she was like, great.
Yeah, you're now British champion, and that's what you needed to do to impress her.
and now she's pushing me to do the Worlds as well. Like,
Yeah.
when I came off stage with the Worlds invite, I was actually quite 50-50 on doing it because I was absolutely tired. I wanted to take a rest. I wanted to enjoy some food, enjoy quality time with friends and family. But then she was like, "Oh, come on, you just got a Worlds invite. Come on, you have to go."
That's good.
So I was like, yeah, I might as well do it.
Yeah, I honestly think, once you're given that opportunity, it gives you a whole new level of motivation, which we'll talk about at the end. So in terms of moving over to bodybuilding and also finding the BMBF, obviously you've competed in the BMBF this year. How did you sort of get into that? What age were you when, because I've obviously seen you only at one show. I didn't actually see which qualifier you did. You were one of those guys that just popped out of nowhere and won the British Championship, exactly like last year. The guy who won the BMBF Championship last year, he just popped out of nowhere. I was like, who's this guy? And he suddenly won it. So maybe that's the secret to winning it, is you've got to pop out of nowhere. But
be that little underdog that comes out of it.
That's it. So how did you, first off, go back to sort of the start? How did you find out about the BMBF, and what was the turning switch for you to go on a prep and get ready for a show?
Actually, the first time I heard about the BMBF was, I think it was like June or July.
Okay.
So it was quite like, I would say it's quite late than usual.
Yeah.
And that's when it's because of my coach. He introduced me into BMBF, and he wanted to do the BMBF as a competitor, as my first competitor stage.
Right.
And from there, since I realized that what needs to be done about the BMBF, get the membership, I signed it up. And the qualifier that I won was the North Manchester one.
Okay, yep.
So that was when was the Manchester one?
It was like
August, 21st of August.
Yeah, it was quite late. Yeah, it was second to last or the last one.
It was the last one. It was the latest one possible, and that was pretty much it. That's the way I found out about the BMBF.
Through your coach. Interesting.
To be honest, I'm quite happy it was my first competitive stage. It was amazing.
Yeah, mate, honestly think that it's literally the best one you can choose in terms of your overall stage time, the lighting, the setup, the day itself, how you're made to feel. I think it is one of the best federations in the UK. You couldn't have picked a better one, especially for a teen. You get competing against teens in a teen class, and for a 17-year-old, that's something that's sort of necessary. If you had to jump up to under 23s, I'm sure you'd still do well, but it'd be a big jump.
that'll be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah. So you've already mentioned that you've obviously got a coach. How did you find out about your coach, and sort of when was the deciding point that you were ready to embark on a bodybuilding prep?
The day I found out about my coach was now this is kind of tricky. I can't remember exactly. I think it was the beginning of this year, February.
Okay.
One of my mom's friends saw me, like topless, making my meal. I was just like making a simple salad with some cheese on it and tomatoes. And he saw me. He was like, "How old are you?" And I just told him 16 because it was like just before I turned 17. And the guy was like, "What?
Yeah.
You're fucking lying to me." And I was like, "Fucking, there you go. Have this passport thingy. Fucking look that I'm not lying." And he told me, "Okay, give me your number. Give me, your Facebook, and I'll meet you up with a guy that's, really into bodybuilding."
Okay.
And I was like, "Okay, there you go." And in the next I think it was the next week, that I actually got a message from my coach. And he obviously asked me a few questions. He was like, "How old are you? Weight? Like, how long have you not competed but trained? What's your personal best on bench press, squat, deadlift? How often do you work out? Are you serious about it?" I answered all of those questions, and then he wanted me to compete as soon as I answered all of them. He said that he wants me into his team, so I agreed on it. And from there, we started like doing like a bulk prep, but not. Uh, he told me what to eat up to, say, about June or July.
Okay. Yep.
He told me what to eat until then. I eat that. Then actually from there, my dad helped me to bulk up a little bit more. My dad is like fucking a bulking person. He can get me from 170 pounds to 200 pounds in like a fucking week. And I did that, and then the day we decided to start prepping seriously for the BMBF, North Manchester, was just the beginning of August.
Wow. And
So-
what weight were you then, Dennis? What weight were you at the beginning of August, like when you decided to start? What was that, like a 4-week prep?
Yes, it was a 4-week prep pretty much.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
Okay, so what was your weight at the start? So you did like a little mini bulk. What was your weight at the start of that prep?
The weight was around 190 pounds.
Okay.
The thing is, it was quite interesting though. I was at around 12% body fat, so it was quite easy to work around it and scope it down because body fat was not that high and it was easily cuttable.
Okay, sure. So what was the, like, I'm just going to skip into these questions because I'm finding this interesting. So what was the approach like when you hit like August time? So you are like 190 pounds, you say. So your stage weight at the British was 175. So that's like a decent amount of weight to drop. So how was your approach for the qualifier? And what did your calories change much from your bulking to your dieting? What happened with cardio? Give us a bit of a roundup as to how it started.
Basically, how it started is my calories dropped down a bunch.
Okay.
Like from here, they would go down to there instantly in one day, which is quite a surprise, and it was quite a shock for the body because that's a huge drop when it comes to calorie, and especially when you're carrying around a big chunk of muscle.
Yeah.
It's quite a big shock and surprise. So the body starts obviously to burn everything as much as it can.
Yep.
And what happened was, with cardio-wise, my cardio just spiked up. I started doing it started to increase as weeks went by. Like, first week I did twice in that week cardio, then it was 3 times, then it was 4 times, and as soon as it came to the last 3 weeks, I started doing cardio like 5 to 6 times a week.
Okay.
To the qualifier. And obviously as the qualifier close by and time gets shorter and shorter, my calories kept on dropping and dropping.
Wow. Okay. So did you consistently throughout the whole sort of 4 or 5 weeks, were you consistently going down in terms of weight? And how often were you weighing yourself on the scales?
I was constantly dropping weight.
Yeah.
I think it was like half a pound a day.
Wow, Jesus Christ.
Constantly dropping weight because of the huge calorie drop. And I was weighing myself probably every 2-3 days.
Okay.
But, in terms of that difference between those 2-3 days, I would say I was dropping about half a pound.
Wow.
every
Okay.
day.
So from like a holding on to your muscle perspective over that short period of fast dieting, do you think that you lost a good amount of your muscle? Do you think that you could have been, had you given it maybe a bit more time, do you think that you could have been even bigger as a 17-year-old on stage? Or do you think that the sort of the very fast approach worked for you because you were able to just get in and get out? What were your opinions on it?
For the qualifier, I think my muscle actually stayed relatively decent in terms of size.
Yeah.
In terms of size, they stayed relatively decent, but in the qualifier, I was not as ripped as I came to the finals.
Right.
All I'm gonna say is that the finals, that's gonna be the lightest I've ever been.
Really?
175. That's the lightest I will ever be in stage.
Yeah. So you're only going to be obviously heavier in the future. What do you think? What do you think in terms of the approach you took to like calories, cardio, etc.? Do you think there's anything you'd massively change about it if you had like another shot or another go at the prep that you just did?
What I would do is probably bump up my carbs a lot more just before my show.
Mm-hmm.
Because you probably did notice it, that I was a bit flat on my upper body.
Yep.
And that's probably the only thing I would change. Other than that, nothing else, because I came out bone dry.
And you won, yeah. So you wouldn't want to change the result either.
I wouldn't want to change it, but I would just bump up the carbs a bit more, like 200 more.
Yeah.
Just can bulk up the body.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good idea and a sensible one. So in terms of like nutrition, obviously you had an awareness of your calories, so you were tracking your macronutrients to some perspective, so you knew how many carbs, fat, and protein you were having. Were you on sort of like every single day was the same? So were you on a meal plan, or would you promote some sort of flexibility? Would you change in and out foods? What was your approach like?
Basically, when it came to preparing for the competition, my food was limited to like 3 sources of carbs, which was sweet potato, oats, and brown rice.
Okay.
And those were my 3 foods. And as the weeks go by, each one gets cut out. So, for example, after the first week, the brown rice will go.
Okay.
After the second week, the oats will go. So I'm left with just the sweet potatoes. And pretty much sweet potatoes will be the only thing I'm going to be eating up until the last week, where the last week is absolutely carb. I would say a week and a half, not the last week, but the last week and a half.
Yep.
I cut out sweet potatoes as well. I go on an absolute low carb.
Mm-hmm.
And for about 2-3 days, absolute low carb. And then I go on the bulk up, which is carb loading.
Yeah. So you do sort of like a mini deplete and then you carb up for the show.
Yeah.
Interesting approach. So do you do anything do you know whether your overall protein changed at all throughout the diet? And did you start with like high protein? Did protein stay the same the whole way through?
Protein went up quite significantly a lot than what it was at the beginning of the prep.
Right.
Because I'm usually a big eater. I love eating big. I love big, like, not just dense foods, but I love, like, give me one humongous bowl of oats in the morning. I love that.
Yeah, same. Yes.
That's the type of person I am.
Yeah.
So to go on a really strict, like, small eating diet, it was difficult for me. So what happened was in the beginning of the prep, I was on 300 grams of carbs, which that's extremely high.
Yeah.
And then I noticed that at the last week I had about 500 grams of protein.
Wow.
As the carbs went down.
Jesus Christ, that's a lot. That's a huge amount of protein.
I had to.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is obviously, protein and carbs obviously carry the same calories per gram. So do you think that, whilst obviously you said, when you train your legs heavy, you hold a lot of glucose and stuff like that. Do you think that, potentially if you kept calories the same, do you think that, you could have got away with having more carbs and less protein? Do you think that could have worked at all? Or do you think that the sort of the higher protein approach maybe kept you slightly more like full in terms of like hunger levels. Do you think that you could have made any changes to that in terms of like the split of macros that you had?
Yes, I think that if I actually consumed a little bit more carbs, that would have kept me fuller. The muscles would have been fuller, and they would have been, I don't know how to say it, like packed.
Yeah,
They'll be staying there.
Yeah.
In terms of just being protein wise, it did kind of keep my stomach busy. I was not as hungry.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I think like in terms of muscle, I would say that I would prefer carbs than just protein.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that front. Like, if I saw a diet, totally from my perspective, obviously, you would never argue someone who's done as well as you, but from my perspective, I'd even sit protein even lower in, comparative to where I think the high end would be. I remember like towards the end of my prep, I dropped it pretty low, and just favoured carbs, because otherwise my training would go to shit, my physique would go to shit, and that's not ideal when you're on a pursuit to maintain as much muscle as you can. Whilst protein is obviously there to promote protein synthesis and make sure that you do retain muscle, it's also important to remember that if you don't have a stimulus, which is your training, then you're not going to retain it at all.
Exactly.
So
that's where a lot of people mess up.
Yeah, and then they'll diet in a very odd manner that makes their training go to shit, and then they wonder why they've lost all their muscle. So in terms of training, did you change anything when you started prep? Did any like split change? Did you do more or less? Give us an idea as to how you trained.
The only thing that changed was just cardio. In terms of weights, I kept my approach to weights the same way I did, because it just worked absolutely perfectly for me.
Yeah.
And the only thing I would say is that like as weeks went by and like I went to like the second week out or last week out, my training just kind of went into more pump-wise. It was not like heavy. It was not high sets. It was literally just as light, not as light, but as like medium light-ish weight for like 4 sets, 15 to 20 reps.
And do you think that was because the heavy stuff was really hard and it was difficult to do the heavy stuff because you were lean, and maybe were you fatigued as well? Do you think that paid a sort of a price in terms of your overall training performance?
Yes, my fatigueness did kind of take a lot out of my workout out in terms of the second week out. I would say if I go back, I can definitely pack up like on some exercises fairly heavily. Like my back, I can easily do T-bar row with like 100 kilograms for like at least 3-4 reps. But it's not going to be as good as a form as it would normally be when I have high carbs. So I prefer to stay away from it.
Interesting. So what does your sort of, like you said, you kept training the same throughout most of the prep. So what does your standard training split look like across a week, and how would you change, anything about rep ranges or, anything like that, or will you just keep things similar and run the same split for a while?
My usual split would be like a big muscle group with a small muscle group, like chest and tris or chest and bis, or back and bis, back and tris, legs. Interesting bit is, before my prep, I used to train legs alone.
Okay. But
as soon as my prep came in, I started to fit shoulders with my legs. And in a way, it kind of did work quite well, because when I'm doing, like, say, deadlift, which works a little bit of the back, and then I go into a shoulder press, it actually does work a little bit of the back.
Yeah.
And so I found that it works quite well in a way. But I would usually keep it the same split, big muscle group, small muscle group.
Yeah.
I would keep the same muscle groups in that day throughout the whole prep. I would just tweak some of the exercises.
Okay. Interesting. Cool. So you wouldn't change like much about it. You'd still do heavy stuff until the end, and then just do the pump bar. Okay, cool. So in terms of your approach to your training when it comes to tracking workouts, would you log anything? Do you do you like log your workouts on a spreadsheet or on a on a notepad, or do you just what's your mentality in terms of going into the gym to sort of progress? How do you track that?
That's my favorite bit because I usually don't tend to track it.
Okay.
The thing that I do is I always just walk in and I'm like, okay, I feel like I need to do more of this. I feel like I need to do more of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, in a way, like before going into the gym, I'll look at myself in the mirror and
Wow.
I'll be like, yeah, maybe like say the upper chest needs a little bit more work. Say the lower chest needs a little bit more work. My bicep needs a little bit more work. I'll look into it and I'll be like, okay, I think I've figured out what I need to do. And as I walk into the gym, I just follow with that plan and see how it goes. I don't like slapping my workouts in a spreadsheet or something.
No.
It's as helpful as it may be. I just prefer to walk in and be like, yeah, I know what to do.
Mate, I totally appreciate that, because I found quite a lot of the time when you're putting stuff into spreadsheets, when you're tracking it in a notepad, whilst, like you said, it is helpful, you can also be over analytical. So you can, you can really think too much into your training when, the old school guys would just go in and crush a workout. And, there's been several times when, I'm the type of guy, I don't know if you know, but I log everything. I log all of my stuff. There's been some times when I'm like away, if I'm on holiday or on a trip, and I'll be with a friend, and I won't have my logbook or my spreadsheet. I'll go in, I'll just crush it, and then I'll be like, that was actually really enjoyable, and I really like that.
It's way more enjoyable because you're not on an actual strict spreadsheet which tells you what to do. I find it more enjoyable.
Yeah, I totally agree that. I think it is more enjoyable.
Optimal. Especially when you're low carbs and you're like absolutely angry as fuck.
Just it does give you more motivation to just go in and crush it.
Exactly.
Especially when you get momentum going. Yeah, it's interesting. I think maybe once in a while I'll do a crush it workout.
No, make sure it's at least once a week. At least once a week, make sure you get it in.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Right, so in terms of your overall stage experience, both in the qualifier and the British finals, how would you rate the day itself? And did anything come to you as a shock in terms of the posing, the routine, or anything like that, or did you just sail through it and really enjoy the day?
If I have to rate it out of 10, I would say it's just 10 on both days.
Awesome.
It's the way I just love the BMBF after both of these shows. It's just like when you go up, like when I was up in the qualifier, I was actually quite stressed in a way because it was obviously my first show. I was unaware of what's going on.
Sure.
I didn't know what the fuck to do. I was just going with the flow. But the way the BMBF does its stuff, it's so well done, so smooth. In a way, like as soon as you go up in stage, the stress is just out of the way. Absolutely. It's like you've just went to take a piss and you're absolutely fine. It's honestly like that. It's the way they do it is just amazing, and I'm honestly gonna keep on going back to this federation. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that when I first competed back in 2014, I was hella stressed like you. I mean, I wouldn't say I was nervous. I was just stressed out because I didn't know what it was going to be like. And when I got there, it's just so easy to do it and so easy to go through the motions. And I've competed in all sort of the main three of the natural federations in the UK. I can honestly say that the BNBF do a very good job.
Their job is amazing
in terms of everything, and I totally agree. In terms of what you changed, obviously you said that you sort of got a bit leaner for the British. In terms of what, let's say what do you think you need to improve on or do differently to become world champion in Miami, and how do you think you're going to do that?
The thing that I need to do is just try and bump up the carbs a little bit and try and kind of like lean off protein.
Yep.
Because honestly, my body's like, if I have to say, like I said in the beginning, my body has pretty much kept the same weight since the finals.
Yeah.
And on the day of the finals, if I have to say just by pictures, I was probably at around 3 to 4% body fat.
Yep. Yeah, you were pretty lean, yeah.
And I measured myself yesterday, and surprisingly enough, after all the fucking junk food I ate, and after like fucking chocolate after chocolate bar after chocolate bar, after fucking humongous burger and shit, I was only at around 5.5%.
Yeah.
So that's not a change at all in terms of body fat. So in a way, there is no reason for me to stay on low carb. I need to bump up the carbs a little bit, make my body kind of stimulate the muscle in terms of growth, and then try and shred it back down again, because there is just no reason for me to be on low carbs. Absolutely no reason at the moment.
Yeah, I think you could definitely get away with that, almost bumping up the calories and seeing what your physique looks like, and then like you said, if you need to sort of reduce it towards the end, and then sort of like diet a bit more off, then obviously you can do it. But I think it goes to show that you were flat and potentially depleted as a result of you said you overate massively, and then you're still fairly similar in terms of body comp and weight. So it shows that you were probably hella depleted on the actual show day itself.
The depletion was absolutely intense and amazing when it comes to that prep.
Yeah,
I'm probably not gonna ever do it again.
No, I bet.
I'm gonna do a similar depletion, but honestly, that was just extreme. I liked my conditioning, but the size, could do a little bit more. Like size will obviously come with time, but fullness can be achieved really quick, and I think that's something that you can definitely bring to Miami for sure. So yeah, I mean, what in terms of my final question was like, really, when you went to the British finals, I remember messaging you just after, and you sort of explained that you were maybe a little bit shocked. So was your did you won your qualifier, right, Dennis? Yep.
Yeah, so when you went to the British finals, did you have an idea as to who you were competing against, and did you check out the competition, and were you sort of worried? Did you expect to win? Give me an idea as to your mentality before the finals.
Before the final, as soon as I won my qualifier and I knew that I was going to compete in the British finals, I had to look at what my competition is like.
Mm-hmm.
So I did go and I did search around to see who won what, like which qualifier was the winner there.
Yep.
Honestly, when I went through the people, I was quite impressed with some of them, but the guys that actually got my eye was Kirk Robertson and Jack Gill. Those are the two guys that absolutely got my eyes.
Yep.
And I was like, shit, if I want to win this, I have to step my game up. I have to put the standards as high as possible.
Yep.
And I went up, I tried to do my best, and luckily I won.
Came out on top. Yeah, I think, and you got that right, didn't you? Because I'm pretty sure Jack came second and Kurt came third. So you got that right.
Those two were the guys that absolutely got my eyes.
Yeah.
I just thought, like, when I saw Jack especially, I was like, shit.
He's a big lad.
Like, shit, he's a big fucking lad.
But then again, like I said, is like Jack's 19, so that was his last year in the teens. I think you have potentially 2 years left as a teenager. Wow.
Surprisingly, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
This off season and next year, I'm gonna try and become a pro.
Oh, really?
So
is that the goal? Wow.
Watch out for that.
That would be incredible. You'd be the first, you'd be the first person to ever do that. I think
I know it's a high stretch.
Yeah.
I know it's going really, really forward.
Yep.
But honestly, I think it's possible, and I want to give it my best shot to see how it's going to happen.
Well, if you set goals like that, mate, you can only improve, and you can only be, really good and really, competitive next year. I'll be certainly watching for that, because I think I'm going to compete next year as a junior. So maybe
BMBF?
Yeah, in the BMBF. So maybe I'll see you in the overall at some show in the future. That'll be awesome.
You will.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. My only other question for you, Dennis, is what sort of the plans moving forward? You've given us a good idea as to what you want next year. What's the goal? What's the end goal for this year? And where do you see yourself sort of maybe in the future in terms of like, do you see yourself in the fitness industry as a personal trainer or anything like that? Give us an idea as to what your plans are.
Well, for this year, the final thing that I want to do is obviously the Miami World Finals.
Yep.
I want to win that. Honestly, I'm going to try my best to see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I'm going to go into my off season finally after these 3 fucking dreadful months. I can go into my off season. I can build up as much muscle as I possibly can naturally till the next shows comes up. Next year, like I said, I want to become a pro. So that's going to be a huge stretch. If I can do it, then fuck you know. I'm going to try my best on that as well. In terms of if I can see myself in the future in the industry, honestly, I cannot see myself anything other than bodybuilding.
Okay.
When I try and do something else, you know, I sort of have an understanding where I can be, but bodybuilding is just like, I'm made for this.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely
absolutely born for this. I want to do it, and anything like personal training, coaching, whatever. I think I can do anything when it comes to bodybuilding.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think if you've got that passion for it, mate, you can definitely chase it. You know, I'm sure there'd be a lot of people that would put their trust in you to coach them towards a show. I can honestly say that it's one of the most rewarding things ever, coaching someone to a show and seeing them get on stage. It's fucking awesome, mate. So, you know, if you ever
when you see them win as well, it just puts such a smile on your face.
Yeah, it's unreal. Yeah, it's an unreal experience, and yeah, I definitely recommend that. One final question also is, where can anyone find you, sort of, if you have like a social media? Do you have Instagram, or can people find you on Facebook or anything like that? Because I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in sort of maybe following your journey to Miami, etc.
I'm quite limited when it comes to
I thought you were
being like reached up, but
yeah.
Honestly, if people actually want to talk to me and feel and actually want to speak to me, ask me a few questions, just go to Facebook,
Okay.
Denis Mihov, find me. I'm always on Facebook. Absolutely always. You will always find me there. Like, whatever. Feel free to message me whatever you want.
Nice.
Questions, whatever. I'm more than happy to speak.
Cool. I'm sure that you might get a few teens, you know, asking a few questions, you know, potentially about bodybuilding or prep or things like that, because, you know, people want to know what the answer from a champion, mate. So I'm
more than happy to speak. Honestly, I'm more than happy to speak.
Cool. I really appreciate that, mate. And yeah, I mean, thank you very much for giving up your time for the podcast.
No problem, man. I'm more than happy to be here.
Nice. It's been brilliant chatting to you, and you know, you not only have a great physique, mate, but you have a very good personality and a great story as well. So I'm sure people have loved listening to this. So yeah, that's pretty much a wrap. So thank you guys for listening. If you can, again, give us a review on iTunes if you can, and also if you're watching on YouTube, give the video a like. If you're on SoundCloud, then retweet it or replay it if you can, and give it a love. And yeah, I will see you back in episode 16. And yeah, Dennis, see you later, and we'll go.
Take care, guys. Love you.
Love you. Bye.